What's going on, guys? It's the Unhinged Engineer here, and if you've ever been in an engineering presentation, you probably already know that they can be super stressful. And what I mean by engineering presentations are design reviews, regular stand-ups or progress reports with your team, and worst of all, interviews where we just talk about previous work. And these situations are really scary because we run the risk of looking kind of dumb in front of everybody. And not only just like looking dumb, but also being misunderstood, which can have both interpersonal and technical ramifications, right? And so I want to help you out and give you some of the tips that help me execute engineering presentations better for two main reasons, right? Unselfishly, we want everybody we work with to have all the information they need to make smart decisions and operate cohesively as a team. And then selfishly, we want to look good and receive acknowledgement and praise for the work we've done, right? And so for those two main reasons, I'm going to help you structure your presentations better and communicate what you're trying to communicate, technically speaking, to all your teammates. But before we do, hi, I'm the Unhinged Engineer. I'm an AI/ML researcher in the aerospace and defense sector, and I make career development content for young professionals like me trying to make their way in the engineering technology field, which is super competitive and scary right now. And yeah, people who have the ultimate goal of just building cool shit and working cool jobs. And so if that's who you are, then this is a channel for you. And yeah, let's get right into it. All right, so when thinking about our engineering and other technical presentations, I think these are the three main topics that we have to factor into how we design these things, how we rehearse them, and how we execute them, right? Audience is really important. Context, like giving that audience context they need to understand what's going on. And then lastly, framing everything that's going on around the engineering choices that you had to make. These are the three main levers that are going to push us towards our goal of coming off really strong in engineering presentation. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just talk about our audience for now. Because while it's the first one that I think you have to start with, it is actually pretty simple, right? At the end of the day, if you don't tailor your message to the people receiving it, the likelihood that they understand what you're talking about is very, very low. Okay, this is just ground floor, the first thing you should think about with a presentation. And like for me, I think about three main things, three main expectations of our audience when talking about this, right? The first one is technicality. How technical are the people you're presenting to? Are they engineers or are they managers? I'd say all managers aren't technical, but you get the point. Or are they finance people? Or what about like research scientists, right? How technical these different groups are matters a lot in how you deliver your message. Even if the end result we're going to talk about later is the same, like the framing of it will change dramatically based on whether somebody has a bachelor's in engineering or an MBA or a PhD in physics or whatever else, right? And I don't want to be credentialist here, but my only point is like, if you're presenting to a bunch of people with similar technical backgrounds and levels of expertise to you, then that's a different message from kind of punching up towards people who are like world experts or punching down towards like the public, right? The general public who might not even know like, what the hell you're talking about. Okay, and so thinking about how technical your audience is like matters a lot in terms of how we deliver our message. The second thing I think we should think about is seniority. And what I mean by this is if they're more senior, focus on outcomes. And if they're less senior, I'll say more junior, then focus on progress or details. This is kind of how I think about it. I mean, ideally, even junior people should care about outcomes, and even senior people should care about like how things are getting done, like the technical details. But the truth is like people only have so much bandwidth. And so if you're presenting, like if you're doing a regular stand-up with all the people on your team, or maybe just your immediate manager, then it's okay to like focus on some of the nitty-gritty, focus on some of the technical details and things that everybody you're talking to is familiar with already, right? Because it's gonna land. But if you're talking to like the head of your entire organization, like the CEO or something, or even the chief engineer of your entire company, right? Like there's just too many of these presentations for them to keep track of all the little nitty-gritty that you're talking about. And so what they really care about is outcomes. Like, are you delivering on what you promised? Are there any blockers getting in the way of doing that? Are there any other implications for other projects that they should know about? Like big, large-scale outcomes are what these people care about because it's all they can afford to care about. They have like 8 of these presentations today. You're one of 8, okay? And so, yeah, seniority matters in terms of what we focus on when we set up the conversation. Again, even if the end content is the same, the delivery and the framing is important. And the last thing I want to talk about here is tone, super briefly, because this is a very nuanced thing. if you work in a company with like a healthy engineering culture and everyone kind of expects like design reviews to be firing squads, then it's okay to have a little bit of like macabre confidence and come in like, this is my design, I'm confident in it, but I also know there's flaws and I fully expect you to like sink your teeth into it, right? You just kind of go into it, cool, calm, and collected. If you're somewhere with a much more strict culture, then it may be best to be professional and kind of verge on robotic, right? Because if everybody's wired and they're trying to kill each other, like actually trying to kill each other instead of just, playing with your food, like a lot of people do in these healthy engineering review settings, right? Then you don't want to show that weakness. Like you kind of want to just be firm, be a little robotic and stone-faced, and just plow through it. Okay, and this is something that takes practice and a couple of getting kicked in the teeth a couple times to really get the hang of. And even I don't have it down to like a perfect science, but I definitely think the tone of your organization does matter a lot in terms of your audience, right? And so yeah, in general with audience here, how technical are the people you're speaking to? How senior are they and how many different things they have to juggle in terms of presentation? And what tone are they expecting from you? Are they expecting you to take it serious or are they expecting you to have a little bit of fun? Okay, the next thing I want to talk about here is context, which is closely related to our audience, but there's a subtle differentiation I want to make here, okay? The audience is the people that we're presenting our content to. The context is how we control the reaction or impression that people have. Now, obviously, we don't have total control, right? We're not, Professor Xavier from X-Men. But without providing any context, if we just like boldface give them the bit early, like what we're trying to communicate across right away with no context, and we have no idea how they're relating the information they just got to other broader context throughout the project in the organization, okay? And so, yes, how we structure our context is derived from the audience that we're presenting to, but the end message is derived from that context, right? So it's all about framing. We're kind of trickling down from like audience to context. Like this is in an order for a reason. We make this like a sales funnel. I sound like such a hustle bro. To choices. Like we're funneling down here, and this context piece is the highest degree of control we're going to get over the end message we're trying to communicate, right? And so what do I mean by context? Well, for engineers, a lot of times that means like system requirements, or it means testing data, or it means previous versions or lessons learned, right? For managers, that might mean something like, human capital, budgets, things like that. And for like high-level executives, it could even mean like the literal profit of the system that you're designing, or sales, or how it aligns with the rest of your organization, okay? This is all context that's going to color the choices you made, which is the third thing I'm going to talk about, in a certain way, okay? And so if we're not intentional about the context and expansive about the context, then it's not going to come off in a way that we can predict. We're just going to give them the bit, they're going to react however they're going to react, and then we're playing catch up. And getting out from behind that eight ball is really, really difficult, okay? And so that context is super, super important for framing the final message of our presentation intelligently. Well, this is the last thing I'm going to talk about here. It's actually the entire reason I made this video, okay? Because I was preparing for quarterly project reviews in my research organization, and I had a much, much more senior engineer give me the advice, frame my presentation around the engineering choices I had to make. So put simply, engineering is about choices, trade-offs, compromises, etc. in service of a problem that we're trying to solve, right? And framing that problem is usually a part of the context that we provide. Like, what's the problem we're trying to solve? What are the requirements we're trying to meet? Okay? And so, like, this is engineering right here. This is the stuff that people care about. And in all the examples of engineering presentations I talked about at the beginning, the choices that you were forced to make by that context that we just talked about is the novel part that you're getting paid for, that people want to know about, right? In design reviews, think about all the data that you provide. What's that data usually for? It's usually for justifying or invalidating choices. Like, do we construct this wing in this way? Do we have to train this model this amount or more? Like, does it meet our performance requirements? Like, all that data and context that we're trying to give them, the information we're trying to give them, ultimately culminates in a choice. Do A or B. Everything's about choice. Okay, with progress, like progress reports for, the immediate team that you're working with, choices usually dictate how much progress you're gonna make. For example, if you've decided that something is done, like if you've designed it, architected it, tested it, got enough data, made the choice that it's done, then you move on to the next thing, okay? Or if you make a faulty choice early on that leads you to a blocker, like that might be something that a manager needs to elucidate and pull out of you in order to fix your problem, right? Everything's about choice here. Choices are the hardest part of engineering. And so we should frame our presentation around the choices that we were forced to make by that context that I talked about in a way that our audience can understand, okay? And lastly, with interviews, it's like, if you're talking about a project or a previous internship, yes, they want to know about, the end outcome or the end result / deliverable of the things you worked on. But if they're really trying to get to know you as an engineer and kind of sound whether or not you are like an instrumental part of those outcomes, they're going to ask you about questions like, what compromises did you have to make? What tests did you have to do? What tools did you pick over other ones and why? Like these are all engineering choices that demonstrate your expertise or lack thereof. So my point with this, and the main fulcrum of this video, is that engineering presentations should be about choices. That's the last thing that we get to. And so to summarize, our audience is the first place we start. The audience then leads us to the context, right? Who are the people we're talking to? And what is the contextual information they need to interpret the choices we made well? And lastly, that context funnels down into choices. Talk to our audience, ideally at the beginning, be a little friendly. Provide them all the context they need, and then describe the choices that were made based on that context. Those people are going to take those choices in a certain way, hopefully positive, but not always, and then they're going to ask you questions about context. They're going to ask you, what testing data led you to that choice? Or, we tried this before and it didn't go well. Why do you think it'll work well now? Like, they're going to ask you for more context, you're going to provide it, and then you're going to reiterate your choice. Or, if it's a real design review and changes are really going to be made, you're going to change that choice. You're going to say, oh, crap, okay, I guess I need to make a different decision now. So this cycle of audience funneling into context, funneling into choices, is ultimately the flow we should expect. All right, guys, this way of thinking about and structuring our presentations and kind of the expectations we can have going into them is ultimately what I wanted to share with you today. Okay, at the end of the day, if you think about the things you're presenting in an intelligent way, kind of with this framework that I presented, or even a different one, then you're going to be okay. You're going to come off like you've done the homework. You're going to present all the information that they need to at least understand why you made certain decisions, even if they disagree with it, and everything's going to go smoothly, right? Well, maybe not smoothly, but you'll survive. You'll come out with a couple of scratches, right? These are the things that engineering is about. And so in a good organization, everybody's thinking about these things all the time and recognize that there's no perfect solutions, only ones that work and ones that don't. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it valuable. Like I said at the beginning, I'm the Unhinged Engineer. I make professional development content for people working in engineering and technology, like me, trying to kick off their careers in an awesome way. I'm also vlogging my grad school journey, so I'm getting a master's in computer science at night. I'll work my full-time job. If any of this content is something that interests you, please like, comment, and subscribe. I hope this helped. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.